The day Evan saved the old woman from falling down her front porch steps was the day everything began to change. He hadn't meant to be a hero. He was just walking home from school, hoodie up, earbuds in, the weight of a failing math grade and a silent dinner table pressing down on his shoulders. But he saw her wobble, her foot catching on the uneven step, her cane slipping, and his body moved before his mind did. He darted forward, caught her just in time, and gently steadied her until she regained balance. "Thank you, dear," she said, breathless, looking up at him with bright blue eyes framed by fine lines and a kind smile. "You've got good reflexes. What's your name?" "Evan," he mumbled, suddenly shy. "Well, Evan," she said, brushing off her coat. "You might have just saved an old woman's hip. You live around here?" "Next door," he replied. "Since last year." "Ah, I thought I heard the sound of video games and life come back to that house. I'm Mrs. Gladstone." That was how it started. A moment of instinct. A kindness returned with kindness. Over the next few days, Evan found himself noticing things about her house. The weeds in the yard. The newspapers collecting on the stoop. The curtain that always seemed drawn over the front window. He figured it wasn't much trouble to help. He started with the trash cans, then moved to the mailbox. Eventually, he'd knock on her door just to see if she needed anything. She always had a gentle thank you, sometimes a smile, and more often, a small invitation. "Would you stay a moment, Evan? I've just made tea." At first, he'd politely decline. But one cold afternoon, something in her voice made him pause. He stepped inside. Mrs. Gladstone's house was like stepping into another era, lace curtains, old black and white photos on the wall, the smell of lavender and old books. She offered him a warm drink and told him stories. Stories of a youth filled with dreams, of a husband long past, of teaching literature for 40 years and reading to children who had no one else. Evan started visiting more often. Not just to help, but to talk, to listen. He didn't realize how much he needed it until one day, he found himself telling her things he hadn't told anyone else. About his dad leaving. About how his mom worked 2 jobs and hardly spoke. About the emptiness at dinner and the coldness in the mornings. Mrs. Gladstone never gave him pity. She gave him her presence. Her silence. Her gentle nods. And sometimes, words that stayed with him long after he left. "You know, Evan," she once said, pouring him a cup of her favorite chamomile, "you remind me of a boy I used to teach. Angry at the world, smart as a whip, but full of fear he'd never name. He ended up becoming a doctor. Not because life made it easy, but because someone made him feel seen." That sentence hit him deep. It was the first time in years someone had seen him not just as a lost teen, but as something more. Seasons passed. Evan's visits back became routine. He'd bring his homework, and she'd sit nearby with a book. When he struggled, she helped. Not with answers, but with questions that led him there. "Why do you think this happens in the story?" she'd ask, not about algebra, but about the book he was assigned. Her passion for literature rubbed off on him. Slowly, his grades improved. Then his mindset did, too. One winter afternoon, as snow fell gently outside, Mrs. Gladstone handed him a small box. "For Christmas," she said. Inside was a worn leather journal, its pages yellowed at the edges. "This belonged to my husband. He was a writer. Thoughtful, quiet, like you. He'd want someone with a good heart to fill it." Evan didn't know what to say. He blinked hard, the lump in his throat too big to speak past. He nodded, hugging her tightly for the first time. But time, like all things, moved on. One spring morning, her curtains stayed closed. A week passed. Evan knocked, called, no answer. Her nephew, a grim-faced man in a suit, arrived one day to clear the house. She had passed quietly in her sleep, he told Evan. Evan stood on her porch, staring at the door that had always opened with warmth, now shut forever. He felt something break inside. But a few days later, he received a letter. It was in her handwriting. Dated a month earlier. "Dear Evan. You gave me something I hadn't had in years, purpose. Your visits reminded me that life still had light, even in its twilight. I saw in you a boy aching for more, for meaning, and I hope I helped you see it was already inside you. You once told me you didn't know what you wanted to be. I want you to know I believe in what you can become. Live fully. Love deeply. And write everything down. It's how we live on. She'd left him one more gift, a scholarship. Small, but enough. Created in her name, meant for a young person with fire in the heart and a story to tell. Evan applied to college that year. He wrote an essay that began with, "The day I saved an old woman from falling down the steps, I thought I was doing her a favor. I never realized she'd end up saving me." Today, Evan teaches literature. He still keeps that journal. Its pages are full now, of memories, of pain and beauty, of lessons he didn't learn in school. And every year, he tells his students the story of Mrs. Gladstone, the woman who changed his life not with power or wealth, but with time, presence, and belief. Because sometimes, the smallest friendships leave the largest footprints.